of which that is not what I'm seeking, and an elective one. An elective one, not with anything hidden, but with Kenyans knowing full well the charges that are before me. So therefore, as far as I am concerned, and there is a case already in court, and I do believe that case will be heard, I think it's this week, and the issue of the integrity question will be, without a doubt, resolved.
And I'll give the rest of the candidates 30 seconds, starting with Peter Kenneth on the same issue.
Yes. First of all, I voted for the local tribunal, and we didn't succeed. Because I also feel we have put too much concentration on the 4 indicted persons. And we have many Kenyans out there who are still languishing in very poor situations arising from that event of the last election. For me, I would go with the presumption of innocence until proved guilty. I would like to defeat my brother in a proper electoral process rather than have him eliminated so that we can square the ball out squarely. But I also want to say this. Article 10 of our Constitution on national values and Chapter 6 are very key, and we need to address them even as we address the issue of ICC.
Thank you. Honorable Mudavadi.
Yes, I think this is a very delicate matter for the people of Kenya. One of the important things that we must figure out is that as we try to come to the next election, what is the destiny of the Kenyan nation? This is absolutely essential when we are conducting ourselves and conducting our politics. Nobody should actually be facing trial outside Kenyan soil. That is something I believe in, and that is something I also voted for, so that we wanted a local tribunal. But the point I'm trying to make here, and I want to make it very quickly, is that there are definitely implications on how the Kenyans will conduct their vote. This is something that we have to grapple with. They have a freedom to make the choice, but we are seeing dangerous signals that need to be thought through by the Kenyan people.
But 5 of you here were in that cabinet that failed to bring the trials to Kenya, make it a local process. Are you then admitting failure of leadership on your part?
We are not admitting failure of leadership on our part. I think we are dealing with a situation where people did not understand a situation at that particular moment in time. And I want to say that I, and indeed some of the people who are here, fought so forcefully to have this matter handled through a local mechanism. But there was also an equally potent member of our parliament, potent members of our parliament, who thought that they would rather have this thing handled outside. And they carried the day at that time. But on this one, I can tell you that quite a number of us stood for a local mechanism.
Right. Honorable Odinga.
Every Kenyan knows how I stood on this particular matter. Kofi Annan actually warned us about The Hague. And me and President Kibaki spent nearly 8 hours in Parliament trying to convince our colleagues to vote for a local tribunal. Unfortunately, 2 of my colleagues who are now in The Hague are the ones who led the campaign against a local tribunal. Unfortunately, I am the one who is now being accused of having taken people to The Hague, because nothing could be further from the truth. I do not want to eliminate any kind of competition. That's why I would rather have my brother on the ballot. But I know that it will pose serious challenges to run a government by Skype from The Hague. I know that it's not practical.
Honorable Moita.
My plea is to spare a thought for the victims, the 1,300 people, Kenyan people, innocent, who were murdered, who were killed, leaving behind relatives, the many women and men who were raped. Let us spare a thought for the victims. Let us also agree that we cannot continue with a culture of impunity. But having said that, the way to tackle the issue of impunity is to go to the highest levels where it is to be found. And I must say that as a lawyer, having read the Rome Statute, I know because the ICC cannot handle the cases of everybody or accused persons, jurisdiction is limited to those holding the highest responsibility. As a federal government, would revisit the issue of jurisdiction. The Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, and he has not asked me to hold his brief, was not a presidential candidate. If you are going to charge 6 people, you must begin with number 1, number 2 to number 6. You cannot begin with 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I wonder whether there was blinking on the part of the office of the prosecutor. The Safina government would like to revisit that so that those holding the highest responsibility perhaps go to the dock there, the others can be dealt with here in accordance with the law.
Are you talking about presidential candidates and therefore the colleague to your right, Raila Odinga, it should be in the list?
Well, 2 people were presidential candidates. It is impossible. You cannot persuade my mind or the minds of many rational people. Now, the 2 candidates did not know about it. It's only these other 4 Kenyans who are facing the charges there, and the 2 candidates did not have a clue about it. That is an issue I would want to see investigated. As a Safina government, we would revisit that issue.
Honorable Odinga, your response to that?
That is a most irresponsible statement that ever was ever made. Because my friend needs to know that investigation was carried out by a commission which was appointed through the Serena process, led by Justice Waki, which then produced the list of names which were handed over to Kofi Annan, who was the leader of the process. And then that list was handed over to Mr. Ocampo. Me, I don't fear, because I have nothing to hide. I know exactly what I did. And I know that I was not responsible. And I would be very willing to go to The Hague if one of you would want to take me there.
Martha.
I just wanted to disprove that the 2 principals actually pushed for the local tribunal. I was Minister of Justice then. The entire cabinet passed the bill, but when I reached Parliament, they left me with the baby. The 2 principals, in spite of my pleas to them, failed to come and persuade members. They merely came to vote, and in their full view, there was rebellion, cabinet pushing people to vote, to refuse to vote for the local tribunal. So to put the record straight, the 2 principals did not stand in Parliament and persuade their troops to vote for the local tribunal.
And one of the principals is here,
right here with us.
Yes.
Yes, I really just want to jog the memory of my just sister here. That first we had a joint PG meeting of PNU and ODM, co-chaired by President Kibaki and myself in the old chambers, pleading with the members to agree to vote for the local tribunal. This is on record, even the Hansard bears out, that we tried as much to persuade all the members to vote for a local tribunal. But the clarion call was, don't be vague, let us go to The Hague. Unfortunate.
But Prime Minister, why is it very difficult for a lot of people to believe your position on the ICC question? The common perception is you put a front that looks like you support a local process when indeed you wanted your opponents out of the country.
In fact, leaders, we first set up a cabinet committee on ICC, chaired by the late Professor Saitoti. I think they were the former Attorney General. There was also Tula Kilonzo, James Orengo, Amason Kingi, and so on. They went first to Geneva, then they went to The Hague, where Mr. Ocampo told him he was not interested in coming to Kenya. If Kenyans can agree to set up a local tribunal, the ICC would not get involved. So we tried everything possible. The second time we went to the cabinet, when Martha had already resigned from the government, it was shot down in the cabinet. And the 2 who are now in The Hague led the campaign in the cabinet to shoot down the proposal to set up a local tribunal.
Yeah, finally on this question. Okay, Honorable Kenyatta.
I think there's a discrepancy there because he just said cabinet passed it. It was rejected on the floor of Parliament, so we couldn't have led an onslaught on cabinet because I think we were all together in cabinet, we approved it, and on the floor, I think Martha is quite correct, that on the floor there was complete confusion, there was no guidance, and as many members of the ODM team, as many members of the PNU disagreed with the position. So it was not as my brother Raila would put it, that he mobilizes troops to vote for a local process, because his own troops rebelled on that particular position with regard to this document.
30 seconds.
No, the troops that rebelled from ODM, the troops who were loyal to my friend William Ruto, and whom he had told to vote against it. Then the troops who were loyal to me voted for a local tribunal to be set up here. But then I was saying that there was a second attempt after Mata had resigned from the government by Mutula Kilonzo. He redrafted the bill, brought it to the cabinet. It was not approved. It was rejected in the cabinet through the intervention of my friends.
Are you satisfied with that?
I think the handset record and voting record will prove that it was actually not that way.
Thank you. Professor Kiapi?
I wanted to make 2 points. And the first one is that it doesn't really matter now what we did or didn't do. The judicial process at The Hague is on. And for me, the question Kenyans must ask and the answers must be given is whether or not my brother here should run for president. And that can be given by our courts. And if our courts fail to give the answer, he himself can give the answer by saying, I'll step aside in view of this until I clear myself, and I don't want to engage the country in this matter. And if he himself, of course, refuses to do that, then he has actually put the ball to the Kenyan people that he's running, and let the Kenyan people decide. And I think it's very, very important as a country that we don't continue to always bury our head.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Kiapi. Your time is up. Let me go back to Martha. Your hand was up.
I just wanted to remind my worthy colleague here, Honorable Raila, there was no vote on the local tribunal because for a constitutional debate, you need 148 members. Those who didn't want a local tribunal literally whipped people out of parliament. I was left there pleading for them to come back. So there was no vote.
Now, finally, in closing this matter, Dida, I'll come back to you, but on a different issue, totally on the same. Just in closing that particular issue of the ICC, all of you are presidential candidates, and each one of you stands a chance of being the next president. And just looking at what the ICC question has done to the country, the exchange with diplomats, and the perception that local systems don't work, that is why some of the Kenyans ended up in The Hague. What do you feel about this? Because there are Kenyans who are embarrassed about this, starting with Leader. 30 seconds, please, and please keep to your time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you are taken for justice, whether to Tanzania or Europe or here in Kibera. Justice is justice unless you have intentions to compromise. But I just wanted to advise Kenyans and the leaders. Personally, my personal view about ICC will need some time. But what I'm saying is if anybody is not comfortable with the idea, then you need to give up and just give room. Listen, Kenya is not an island. The outside world is speaking, Kenyans are speaking, unless a leader is saying, I have numbers in my community, I will look for another community. If I add the two, whatever the world says, I will make it. Unless you're thinking like that, it is comfortable. I don't know why a junior clerk should be forced to step aside, and a minister should. I don't know that disparity. Why are we given the metallic stand? Is it the same thing that we are discussing?
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Let's go to Professor Kiapi.
For me, there are 2 key things in our country, and one of them is that we must build the capacity of our institutions. We must do that, whether it is the judiciary or parliament, we must build the capacity. But the second and most important is
the question, Professor, and you have 15 seconds left, is the image of the country as perceived after the ICC question.
Yeah, the image of the country is obviously everybody's looking at us because one, we failed to use our own local processes, and now the whole world is wondering how Kenya is going to pull out of this. And we need leadership for that.
Thank you very much. Uhuru.
There was a lot of misgiving. And I think it was that misgiving which was used in the 2007 election that our courts could not be trusted. That is why some of us here went to the street. The disrepute of our courts started there. and it caused us a lot of problem, but we now have a new constitution. We want to build on the institutions that we have. We want to build and rebuild the judiciary to restore confidence in the people with our own judicial system. And that is something that I as president will continue to support as I continue, because that is the circumstance we find ourselves in, clearing our name through the international court where we are currently present.
Thank you, Honorable Kenyatta. Honorable Kenneth.
Kenya is greater than all of us, and national interest must prevail over individual interests. And we must ensure that Kenya's best interests are in place. I am saying that because if we do not place Kenya first, and we look at our own individualism and look at it and square it out, it will not help Kenya. Kenya will live beyond all of us.
Thank you, Honorable Davidi.
It definitely puts us in a very awkward situation as a nation. And I would say that I would want to appeal to the Kenyans out there that this is not a laughing matter at all. This is indeed a very serious matter. And a serious decision has got to be made, because once we get to the ballot, and we hope we all can get to the ballot, you must ask yourself, is your vote a vote that is being cast for the Kenyan people, for the nation, or is it simply a vote that you're casting for a particular individual? I think all of us will embody certain aspects of nationhood. And I think that is important that it comes out clearly when the voting is done.
Thank you. The issue is the image of the country. Honorable Martha Karua.
Yes, the image of Kenya definitely suffers, but rightly so, because we have a judiciary that is reforming, but the entire criminal justice system has not been reformed. The judiciary alone cannot make it. We need a reformed prosecutor's office. We need a reformed investigations office and corrections services. I would move as president to make sure that the reforms of the criminal justice system are all encompassing so that Kenya never suffers any other time. And let us remember that the IDPs, the victims of the clashes, have not had justice, and justice is key to reconciliation.
Thank you very much. Honorable Odinga.
Kenya is a sovereign country, a sovereign nation. We discuss our issues not at the behest of the international community. We need to do what we think is right for this country. And people of Kenya should make an informed choice in electing their leadership without interference. But I believe very strongly that our judiciary right now has the capacity to deal with this issue and give direction to the country.
Right. Finally, Honorable Mwita.
We need to be proud as Kenyans that we have a new progressive constitution, very good constitution, setting up independent institutions and commissions. The challenge is implementing fully and faithfully this new constitution. When we do that, the image of Kenya outside will change automatically. By and large, we got it right with the institution of the judiciary. But the institution of the police is being faced with challenges, as we are all reading, some acrimony between the Police Service Commission, the Inspector General, the Office of the President, the Oversight Authority. Something appears not to have gone quite right with the recruitment of those who are serving in the Police Service Commission. So we need to get that right for the judiciary to be effective. But it is humiliating to see ourselves as a nation being talked down to by other nations. But it is because of corruption, impunity, failure of leadership, and the begging culture. If we can stand on our own, economically and socially, we shall be respected and we shall not be talked down to.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to close the issue of ICC and move to the final issue of this part one of the presidential debate. And the issue now is on party politics. If we don't get the construction or the foundation right, you can't expect to get right the rest of the structure. And I want to go to the issue of political parties right now. What are you, as party flag bearers doing to make sure that the country departs from the culture of temporary political parties that are formed and disbanded? They are formed shortly before the election and then disbanded thereafter. Dida, we're hearing of the Alliance for Real Change for the first time. Most people would tell you that.
How many minutes do I have?
1 minute.
Yeah, Alliance for Real Change is a product of the new constitution and is the voice of the hopeless. What we have in mind is working with the registrar political parties, the IEBC, to ensure that the code of conduct and peace prevails in this nation.
But are you concerned that it just came up the other day when you were presenting your papers that there is a party called...
When a teacher moves, I was teaching 40 students in a class, and whatever message I was giving the students, I realized the 40 million Kenyans are lacking in the same. So I just expanded my class. I just want to teach the 40 million Kenyans that, we cannot survive on hide and games. You cannot cry when people are crying. You go and you laugh when people are laughing. We need to be principled. And all what we are saying is just the contrary of what we do. So I tried, we registered this party to clean up the legislature and the executive. But when I saw all aspirants mad of money, I was just gesturing where money is, and I told them we have, because all candidates were arguing that why should I go for a certificate of good conduct, chapter 6 of the Constitution, when it has been scrapped by what Kenyans refer to as vultures. So when we realized that the legislator cannot be corrected at this particular time, and then I thought we should base on the executive, and then for the next 5 years work on how we can work on.
So how old is your party?
Yeah.
How old is your party?
My party, in terms of thoughts, we are very old because.
Okay, thank you very much.
In paper.
Thank you very much. Your time is up. Let's give 2 minutes to Professor Kiriapi to talk about parties. Yes.
RBK, Restore and Build Kenya, is a party, it's a grassroots party that many of us formed, professionals, people who just wanted to do politics differently. And we were not afraid not to be branded as, non-starters in terms of the political game. But we wanted to stick to the values of restoration, of the values of this country, hope to our young people, empowerment to everybody, a party of integrity where leadership can be trusted. And we build this, and I'm very glad because in terms of efficiency of organization, we are actually an example of how a grassroots organization can grow and be something with minimal resources. All of you knew that I was a public official, I was a civil servant.
You have 10 seconds, Professor. Let me just quickly ask you, if you are defeated, if you don't become president, will RBK remain in place?
But it is already remaining in place. It refused to join alliances to get lost. So it is a party beyond the election. It's a part of the future.
Thank you, Honorable Kenyatta. TNA, Jubilee.
As many of you know, I was the chairman of KANU for a good number of years. But after disagreements within the party that we were unable to resolve, I found it necessary to start my own political party in order to be able to group together with other individuals, other like-minded individuals, and to build on a platform where we would have issues drive our agenda. It is unfortunate, but the KANU party was not willing to open itself up to alliances at that time with other parties, which I thought was necessary. We needed to start reducing the number of parties that we had in order to be able to come up with parties that are able to focus on issues, fewer parties that we can build, strengthen, build structures around. And that is why when we formed our party, immediately we embarked to try and look for partners who we could at least enter into this election with and build on and hopefully merge to create a strong political foundation that would be issue-based and that would be able to survive personalities or individuals for that matter.
Thank you very much. 2 minutes up. Honorable Kenneth.
Kenya National Congress is one of the oldest parties. It was formed at the advent of multi-party politics in 1992. And I'm hoping that we can develop ideology so that the party can continue surviving as it has survived in the last 20 years and survive many more years thereafter. I was a little disappointed when Parliament passed the party hopping date from October to January 4th. Then again, nearer January 4th, Parliament again shifted the party hopping date to 18th of January. And beyond that, we are aware that the Registrar of Political Parties was still allowing party shift after the 18th of January. It is important that enforcement of rules are clear and that laws that are created are not torpedoed by Parliament. We need a serious Parliament that will stick to the laws that are enacted to protect the gains of political parties.
I'll give you an additional 30 seconds just to explain to viewers and people watching this debate why you would pick a party that is from the days as back as 1992. What ideological link between your thoughts and that of KNC did you follow? You just picked it as a vehicle of the election?
No, I actually picked KNC quite about 4 years ago. And we've been working with the German Foundation to try and create an ideology party-based. And therefore, we've been very, very clear. I do not hold any position. And KNC should survive as it has survived in the last 20 years and many more years beyond my stay as its party leader for this presidential election.
Honorable Mudavadi.
Yes, thank you.
Your philosophy on parties.
I think what we have now is that we will need to relook at the legislation around political parties, because whether we go into the age of the party or not, I think there are some fundamental issues about the law regarding political parties that will need to be relooked at. One of the problems that we had towards the end of the last parliament, the 10th parliament, was the crash program of trying to pass so many pieces of legislation, all revolving on matters to do with election. And believe you me, it is better for us to admit that certain pieces of that legislation were not well thought out. Therefore, in my view, if we want to build parties based on ideology, based on a long-term basis, we will need to revisit that legislation. We have seen shifts even during the nomination process. We have to properly democratize our parties, have serious internal democracy in our political parties, so that there's sufficient confidence being built with the membership of those parties. So that is what I would say.
Thank you, Honorable Mudavadi. Honorable Karua, your philosophy on parties.
Yeah, parties form government and are supposed to be vehicles of democracy. I believe a government is as good as the political party that forms it. And this is what informed the political parties law 2007, which I tabled when I was minister. Parties are supposed to have an ideology to pull people together. In Kenya, we are social democrats. Right from our constitution, it is stated, the issues that matter to us is about social justice, equity, to see that the vulnerable in society are protected, issues of human dignity and inclusivity. And I would say that it's unfortunate, the political parties law has not been enforced properly. We need to strengthen the office of the registrar. We need to appoint new people as per the constitution, but the blame cannot just go to the registrar. It must go to political party leadership. It is the duty of the leadership to nurture democracy, transparency, and accountability. We do that in Kenya, and we have offices and networks throughout the 47 counties. This is a growing mass movement. Any party that does not practice democracy and accountability like was displayed openly during the nominations, the blame is on the leadership.
Thank you very much, Honorable Karua. Now we come to Honorable Odinga. And it's curious to note that for the first time since 1996, when you went to Parliament on an NDP ticket, having abandoned Ford Kenya, you have not changed parties before this election. It is curious and interesting, and we want to hear what your philosophy on parties is.
Well, what happens in society emerging from single-party dictatorship? There's always a proliferation of political parties. What happened in Eastern Europe? You saw so many political parties emerge. In Poland, one time, a ballot paper was a booklet. Then after that, the parties begin to coalesce together and then form more coherent movements. This is what happened in this country in the early times of multi-party democracy. We left Ford Kenya, we formed NDP. Then we tried to reform CAN. We formed a union, new CAN we called it. We disagreed, we pulled out. We had LDP. We went and formed the NAC as a coalition, but LDP survived.
You have 10 seconds to go, Honorable Odinga. Why do you change parties so often? Do you believe in parties?
I have not changed parties, this is what I'm trying to say. LDP just changed the name into ODM. It is still the same party. We did not change the party as such. Now, ODM has remained up to now. What we've done, we have remerged with the ODM Kenya, which had changed its name to Wiper. And then for Kenya, we have formed now a coalition that is called CORD. We have a very clear agenda for change and reform. And our ideology is social democracy. And we are saying that we want to transform this country. So we have a very clear ideology, and that is what I've stood for right through. It runs
what is the ideology?
Social democracy. This is my political ideology. And that is right from the days of Ford, then Ford Kenya, then NDP. It has never changed. It is the name that has changed. But the principles and ideologies that I stand for have remained very consistent. So I'm very firm to what I want for this country.
Thank you. Honorable Mucha.
Well, the idea behind the Political Parties Act is to implement, operationalize Articles 91 and 92. The concept of the Constitution, 91 and 92, which anchors political parties in the Constitution, is to assist parties in Kenya to become internally democratic and parties that are founded on ideology. Actually, mobilization along ethnic lines is forbidden, is unconstitutional in terms of Articles 91. So that is what we subscribe for, and the challenge is in implementing Articles 91, 92 and the Political Parties Act. But that has not been done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And in preparing you for the next session, which is just about to begin, quick 30 seconds. Yes, Dida?
Yeah, I read in the newspaper, when a society will go for, I don't know whether I can mention the names. I just caught. When a society goes for Waititu and not Jimna, then there is a problem. Now, when somebody started a team of 5, and today 4 are now opposing, and you are alone, is there social democracy in that system? You know, there are some things that are theoretical, but practically we can see this. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that is for party leaders to take that question. I want to come to the final question, which is a security question. Migingo, the island of Migingo, all of you have 30 seconds just to quickly say, is it in Kenya or not? And if it is, what would you as president do to assure the people of Migingo that they are part of Kenya? Leader, 30 seconds.
Just repeat the question, please.
Migingo, do you know Migingo Island?
Yeah.
Is it Kenya? Is it part of Kenya?
Well, there's a problem. We just read the newspaper and we see governments fighting over it. I think the experts can really give us the clear demarcations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Professor Kiapi?
It's a tiny island on Lake Victoria, and really we must get proper facts, because otherwise you can polarize regional politics for nothing.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kenyatta. Migingo.
Migingo is in Kenya. However, the truth of the matter is that there exist disputes as a result of not having clear maps that have been registered at the UN. So I think what needs to be done is for all our borders with our neighbors to embark on an exercise that ensures that we demarcate all our borders and get these fully registered. I don't think it's a subject to go to war at. I think, and I do believe, through negotiation and discussion with our neighbors, that issue can be resolved. But in the longer term, I think what needs to be done is to ensure that all our boundaries are properly marked out and registered so as to prevent future conflict over boundaries.
Thank you. Honorable Kenneth.
any demarcated part of our country must be safeguarded. Not a single inch. Despite the fact that we must practice good neighborhoodness with our countries, not a single inch of Kenya should be inched out to any person. Not any person should take a piece of our part. And I'll be very clear on that. As long as it's demarcated, we must fight for it. We must keep it in our country.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mudavadi.
Migingo is in Kenya. And all we need to do is to make sure that the instruments that deal with our external boundaries are properly registered both within the United Nations system and equally within the African Union system, because that is where the element of confusion arises. But the fact of the matter is that Migingo is in Kenya, we must keep it in Kenya, and we must use diplomacy to convince our neighbors that there is no benefit whatsoever in trying to tamper with Migingo.
Thank you very much. Honorable Karua.
Migingo is in Kenya, and the joint survey that was conducted between Uganda and Kenya firmly found that Migingo was within our boundaries. What is not clear is why the current executive, of which we have 4 members here, has not moved to settle the issue. And settling the issue doesn't mean going to war. There are many diplomatic ways of settling the issue through international law, because we must respect the maps and the boundaries. So it is a letdown that the current executive has not claimed Migingo. As president, I would not let such a matter stay for such a long time. It needs to be resolved instant.
Thank you. And that is a charge that Honorable Odinga should address as Prime Minister. Why have you done nothing about the Migingo issue?
Well, Migingo, as the others have said, is in Kenya. We did actually discuss with the Ugandan government and set up a joint surveying team consisting of experts from Uganda and Kenya. That survey work has not been completed because of certain technical issues from the other side. Uganda is a friendly neighbor, and it's actually inconceivable that 2 countries could go to war over a piece of rock on the lake. We are trying to resolve this matter peacefully with Uganda, because we are now trying to move towards the East African Federation. So we don't want the little issue of Migingo to mar the relationship between Kenya and Uganda.
And finally, the final say on the Migingo issue tonight goes to Paul Mwite.
I think it is unacceptable that we should be forced as a country to be negotiating about Migingo when Uganda, a friendly country, is actually occupying. And they occupied recently. It was used to be occupied by Kenyans. And they are now being given orders by police officers, army officers from Uganda. I certainly would deploy the Navy. Uganda fortunately doesn't have a Navy. I'll take it there. Then we negotiate. After I've told the Ugandans who occupied wrongfully to go back, then the survey work can continue. And it is not just Migingo. We need also to resolve the issue of Elemi Triangle. We've got African Union, we've got the United Nations. Let us make our boundaries secure and then have our army to secure. Let's make every Kenyan within our boundaries secure. It is unacceptable that people can come from outside, go to Turkana, kill people, not once, twice, or 3 times. We must respect the life of every Kenyan within our boundaries.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mwite. And indeed, that will be the final comment of part 1 of this presidential debate, coming to you live from the Brookhouse School here in Nairobi. And my colleague is here. Julie will be taking you through part 2 of the debate.
I certainly will. 1.5 hours already gone, and another 1.5 hours or so to go. We will be coming back with your questions now. Thousands of questions came in. We collected them. We broke them down into thematic areas, and they will be presented to you. 3 questions presented to you tonight, and each of you will have an equal chance to address the public on the issues that are raised. What are your commitments to this country? How will you deliver? All that coming up on the way. Stay with the Kenya Presidential Debates 2013. Thank you. Welcome back to the Kenya presidential debates. And time now for part 2. This is going to move quite fast. I hope the candidates are all ready. We're taking questions from members of the public who are with us tonight. And we start this session with a question from a gentleman based in Tana Delta area. Let's have Bwana Godana. Thank you so much. Go ahead with your question.
Godana Dara.
Start again, please.
My name is Ismail Godana Dara. I'm from Tana Delta District. I'm asking this question on behalf of my fellow Kenyans. The problem of insecurity of late we have observed a lot of women, a lot of children losing their lives because of insecurity. What are your future plans to curb this issue of insecurity in Kenya?
Thank you so much to each of the candidates. It's clear that both the domestic issues and external forces as well have contributed greatly to an increase in insecurity in Kenya, along our borders and within the country as well. What does your administration pledge to do for each and every Kenyan, irrespective of locality, social status, age? What is your commitment to this country? I'm going to start in the middle with Peter Kenneth.
Thank you, Julie. As your commander-in-chief, security will not be negotiable. It has to be absolute. Both internally and externally, if we have any threats. I've said in my plan, I will invest in security. I grew up in this Nairobi, when at that time, every police station around all cities had 20 police cars. 2 were reserved, 18 were on patrol, and they had to do 200 kilometers a night. Sadly today, with the population 15 times more, police stations have 2 police cars and have no fuel. I want first to undertake reforms within the police sector so that we can clear the few bad elements that are there and retrain the good elements. I realize that we have a housing shortage of our police officers to the tune of 27,000 houses. We have a shortage of 3,000 vehicles. Yet even the vehicles they have, they cannot undertake any patrols. It is a scandal, Julie, that our police officers can be killed in the manner they were killed in Baragoi by a better equipped cattle lustras. It is not acceptable. I will be hard on it. I will invest on security. The events in Tana River should never happen in a modern country. And not just Tana River. Not just Tana River. We need to equip our police. We need to empower them. At the moment, they are trying to do some job, but they can't do it without equipment. They can't do it without investments.
Fantastic. Peter, how will you finance this?
First of all, we have invested more in our armed forces than our police. Let me tell you, Julie, 10 years ago, our recurrent expenses were 160 billion. Today our revenue is 800 billion, our recurrent expenses are 850 billion. We can't survive that way as a country. We need to cut down, we need to reduce our expenses, we need to make a savings from our recurrent expenses.
Your time is up, but I'm going to give you 10, 20 seconds actually. Tell us where will you cut back?
I am going to cut our recurrent expenses with unnecessary expenses in our budget so that I can direct traveling, motor vehicle maintenance, and all the retreats and conferences that are taking up. I can assure you, having looked at our recurrent expenses, Julie, we can save between 150 to 180 billion of the current recurrent expenses.
Thank you. Let me come to Honorable Musalia Mudavadi now with the same question.
Yes, first I would like to address Mr. Godana because he raised a very specific issue about Tana River. I was in Tana River area, Delta, early last week. And I want to state that they have a unique problem. Part of the problem is the economic situation and the communities that live there. One will have to have a multifaceted approach to this. You must create an environment where the communities are talking to each other and being able to resolve some of the issues without seeking violence. The other is a resource-based dilemma. We need to work on Tana River and the unique areas like Tana River in this country by making sure we can provide the basic issues, water, and be able to give them some of the very, very critical issues that they need so that they can avoid the conflict that they're going through. There was a commission that was put in place which is supposed to report on the causes of violence there. Up to this day, that report is not there.
Do you feel much of the crime in this country is due to the struggle over resources?
Yes, the Tana River area is a unique area. It's largely a resource-based conflict. Over and above that, then the politicians capitalize on it to inflame the situation. Now, the second aspect of it, because that is Tana River and some of the unique areas like Tana River, but in the long run, we must invest appropriately in our security agencies. It's not just about having numbers, but they must be better trained, better equipped, and this can be done by prioritizing issues of security, so that when we do allocate resources, we allocate them to the priority areas.
You have 20 seconds. Can you give Kenyan specifics? When you say better training, better equipped, what are you pledging to the nation?
Communication equipment, it has to be there. The mobility of the police must be there. And then the training to be able to detect crime and get sensitivities of these issues before they occur. We must learn to create a situation where they can prevent. And to get the resources, I can tell you, if we prioritize our programs and our projects, because there are some projects that we have in our budget, but they will take a long time to consummate. But we can rationalize our resources.
Your time is up. And let me come to Martha now on the same issue. Martha, security critical, what would you do?
I would invest not just in security, but in the root causes. One of the root causes is poverty and underdevelopment. We need good communication in the Tana Delta, both the roads and other means of communication, and this deters even pursuit of criminals when they strike, and the ability to detect. It's generally an area like no other, and it's very, very vast. I would invest in technology. There is technology that can help police or security agencies to police such areas without having to have a policeman at every corner. And I dare say that also investing in the welfare, that is the salaries and work environment of the police officers to raise their morale. Also investing in the community by way of campaigning so that they become partners with the police. It is not possible to have a secure environment if the citizens are not involved.